Some betrayals do not come with a screaming match or a shattered glass. Sometimes, they arrive masked as a casual demand from the person who swore to protect you, delivered while you are still bleeding through your bandages. I was 38 years old, just 5 days out of spine surgery with titanium screws in my back, when my husband decided his family vacation mattered more than my recovery. He expected a quiet victim. Instead, I gave them war. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Maya Revenge Stories. Unfortunately, YouTube has recently demonetized our channel, leaving us without the budget to keep bringing you these tales of justice. If you find today's story satisfying, please consider supporting us by joining our Patreon, where you can access exclusive, much longer, and more detailed true stories featuring multiple emotional voice actors that we simply cannot publish here on YouTube. You can join our community by scanning the QR code on your screen or by clicking the Patreon link in the description or the pinned comment. Now, let us dive into today's story about a woman named Cora Castro. The air in my Denver, Colorado home felt heavy, thick with the sterile scent of iodine and the dull, throbbing reality of my own ruined body. I was 38 years old, and exactly 5 days ago, a surgeon had sliced my back open to fuse my spinal discs after a brutal, life-altering car accident. The pain was not merely a physical sensation, it was a relentless entity living inside of me. It chewed at my nerve endings and radiated a white-hot agony through my bones with every shallow breath I managed to draw. I was confined to a heavy medical bed set up in our primary bedroom, my spine fortified with cold titanium screws and rigid braces. I spent my days staring at the ceiling, praying for the heavy prescription painkillers to grant me just one single hour of merciful, uninterrupted sleep. The bedroom door handle clicked, the metallic sound grating against the quiet sanctuary I so desperately needed. My husband, Marcus, strolled into the room. He did not ask how I was feeling today. He did not bring a fresh glass of water or offer to check the dark blood soaking through my fresh surgical bandages. Instead, he leaned casually against the doorframe, projecting an aura of carefree indifference that made my stomach churn with sudden nausea. "Hey," he said, his voice entirely light and completely detached from the medical nightmare unfolding just 3 feet away from him. "Just wanted to give you a heads up. My mom and the rest of the family from Boston are flying in tomorrow. It will be 12 of them this time around. They are staying for 2 weeks, just like we always do for the annual summer trip." I stared at him, my exhausted mind struggling to process the sheer, unadulterated audacity of his words. The room spun slightly from the heavy medication, but the shock cut right through the chemical haze clouding my brain. I forced my trembling hand to reach over to the wooden bedside table, my numb fingers blindly searching until they brushed against the crisp white paper of my hospital discharge instructions. I grabbed the packet and held it up with a shaking wrist. "Marcus," I whispered, my voice raw and rasping from the breathing tube they had used during surgery. "Look at this piece of paper. The surgeon ordered strict, continuous bed rest. I am explicitly not allowed to bend, twist, or lift anything heavier than 5 pounds for at least 1 full month. I have dozens of surgical staples holding the flesh of my back together. I absolutely cannot host 12 people in this house right now." Marcus rolled his eyes, a brief, irritated sigh escaping his lips, as if my shattered spine was merely a minor inconvenience to his bustling social calendar. He did not even bother to cast a glance at the medical document trembling in my hand. "Relax, Cora," he replied, waving his hand in the air dismissively. "My mom and my sister Harper already paid for their plane tickets months ago. Nobody is going to cancel the entire trip now. It is a family tradition. You do not have to do anything at all. Just lie there and rest. Everyone will take care of themselves." It was a lie, and the suffocating silence that followed his statement proved that we both knew the truth. For 8 long years, this so-called family tradition had been nothing but a parasitic feeding frenzy. Every single summer, they descended like a swarm of locusts upon the spacious house that I had purchased entirely with my own hard-earned money, and every single summer, I was immediately reduced to an unpaid, unappreciated servant in my own home. I was the one who meticulously planned the meals, standing over a hot stove to cook heavy breakfasts, lunches, and massive dinners for a small, demanding army. I was the one scrubbing the guest bathrooms on my hands and knees, washing endless loads of dirty towels, and silently swiping my credit card to cover all the groceries, entertainment tickets, and utility spikes while they treated my private sanctuary like an all-inclusive, free-of-charge luxury resort. They never cleaned up a single crumb after themselves. They never offered to pay for even one cheap pizza, and Marcus never lifted a single finger to help me or defend my boundaries. "I cannot do it, Marcus," I said, a desperate, pleading edge creeping into my tone. "I am actively bleeding. I cannot even walk to the adjoining bathroom without crying." "They are my family," he countered, his tone hardening instantly with a defensive, selfish edge. "I am not telling my own mother she cannot see her son. Just put on a brave face for me. I am going to go call her right now and let her know everything is perfectly set for tomorrow." He turned his back on me and walked right out of the room, casually pulling his mobile phone from his pocket to deliver the excellent news to a woman who had never once shown me an ounce of basic human respect. He left the bedroom door wide open, letting the bright hallway light burn into my tired eyes. As I lay there, staring at the empty, quiet space he had just occupied, I waited for the familiar, pathetic wave of self-pity and sorrow to wash over me. I waited for the hot tears of a neglected, unloved wife to sting my eyes, but they never came. Instead, as the deep surgical wounds on my back throbbed with a sickening, rhythmic pulse, something fundamental deep inside my chest cracked and gave way. It was not a mental breakdown or a collapse into despair. It was a sudden, violent crystallization of absolute reality. A cold, razor-sharp clarity swept through my veins, instantly freezing out every lingering ounce of warmth and love I once held for the man who had just abandoned me in my most vulnerable hour. They wanted to use my home and my money while I bled into my bedsheets. They expected me to remain the quiet, obedient, suffering host. The chaotic fog of pain suddenly lifted from my mind, leaving only a chilling, calculated resolve. The heavy oak front door slammed shut downstairs, vibrating through the floorboards and sending a sharp jolt of pain up my freshly fused spine. It was exactly 8 in the morning. Marcus had left for his corporate office, whistling a cheerful tune as if he had not just sentenced his crippled wife to 2 straight weeks of grueling domestic servitude. The house quickly fell into a deafening silence, save for the rhythmic humming of the central air conditioning unit and the faint ticking of the hallway clock. I gritted my teeth, carefully reaching for my heavy work laptop resting on the very edge of the mattress. Dragging the sleek metal device onto my lap felt like lifting a slab of solid concrete. My breathing grew ragged as I booted it up and connected to the secure virtual private network for Meridian Analytics. As the director of data management, my daily job was to find microscopic patterns in massive oceans of chaos, to sift through millions of raw data points and extract the hidden truth for high-paying corporate clients. Right now, however, my only task was to access the sterile human resources portal and finalize my medical leave of absence for the next 6 weeks. After submitting the necessary digital medical forms and doctor signatures, I decided to clear out my overflowing personal email inbox. I needed a mindless distraction from the agonizing, burning sensation radiating from my lower back. I scrolled past endless promotional emails, retail newsletters, and spam until one specific subject line caught my eye. It was a message from Sheila, one of Marcus's distant cousins from Massachusetts. Sheila and I barely spoke. We had maybe exchanged 10 words over the last decade, which made her direct email to my personal address highly unusual. The subject line read, "Question regarding the lodging fee for this July." I frowned, my finger hovering over the laptop trackpad. I clicked the email to open it. "Hi, Cora," the message began. "I know Marcus said you handle all the household stuff. I just wanted to ask if there is any wiggle room on the rate this year. Harper told us the fee is $800 per person for the week, plus a $200 mandatory grocery deposit. I know inflation is high, but $1,000 for a shared room on an air mattress seems a bit steep since we are all family. Let me know if we can work something out before I send the wire transfer this afternoon." I stared at the glowing screen. The words blurred together for a fraction of a second, then sharpened with terrifying, undeniable clarity. Lodging fee, grocery deposit, rate. My breath caught sharply in my throat. I did not reply to Sheila. I did not pick up the phone to call Marcus. Instead, the cold, analytical, and utterly ruthless part of my brain took over. I was a senior data scientist. Give me a single loose thread, and I possessed the skills to unravel an entire sweater. I looked closely at the email thread Sheila had blindly forwarded to me. Below her message was an older, highly detailed email from Harper, sent to a massive blind copy mailing list of 30-plus extended family members. Harper's message contained a polished, professional-looking vacation itinerary and a direct hyperlink to a third-party payment gateway. I clicked the embedded link. It led to a beautifully formatted landing page, complete with high-resolution, stolen photos of my living room, my guest bedrooms, and my private backyard patio. The title of the page read, "The Castro Family Annual Denver Retreat." It looked exactly like a premium commercial booking site. My fingers flew across the keyboard. The physical, tearing pain in my spine was entirely forgotten, instantly replaced by a massive electric surge of pure adrenaline. I ran a quick background trace on the payment link's hosting domain. It took me exactly 14 minutes to bypass the basic privacy shield and pull up the public digital ledger associated with the vendor identification number. I downloaded the entire transaction history into a massive spreadsheet and ran a quick pivot table to organize the raw numbers. The columns and rows snapped into place on my screen, revealing a dark, twisted financial reality that literally made the air vanish from my lungs. For the past 5 years, Harper had been running a shadow hospitality business right out of my private home. Every single summer, she acted as the exclusive booking agent for the Boston relatives. She charged them per head for room and board. She charged them exorbitant cleaning fees. She even charged them a premium luxury fee for the massive backyard barbecues that I planned, cooked, and paid for with my own personal credit cards. According to the cold, hard data staring back at me, Harper had been pocketing tens of thousands of dollars every single year. She had been funneling the cash directly into a private, hidden checking account under a fake limited liability company name. She had secretly turned my house into an illegal, off-the-books hotel, and I was the unpaid maid, the free private chef, and the foolish financial sponsor of her highly lucrative scam. I sat back against my heavy pillows, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird trying to escape its cage. Did Marcus know I rapidly ran a cross-reference of the digital communication logs, checking the internet protocol addresses and the email distribution lists? No, Marcus was not on any of the billing threads. Marcus was entirely clueless. He was simply a weak, self-absorbed man who desperately craved the admiration and validation of his family. He loved playing the role of the generous, wealthy host, completely blind to the fact that his own sister was financially exploiting his extended family and treating his wife like a disposable slave. He was not the criminal mastermind. He was just the incredibly useful idiot who kept the front door wide open for the thieves. A strange, suffocating heat rose deep in my chest. For 8 long years, I had drained my own savings to feed these greedy people. I had spent countless hours scrubbing toilets, vacuuming rugs, and washing dirty sheets until my hands cracked and bled. I had smiled politely through their constant passive-aggressive insults, because they were family. I had purchased expensive cuts of steak, premium wine, and gourmet snacks, thinking I was being a good, supportive wife. And all the while, Harper was getting rich off my sweat, my beautiful home, and my bank account. The dull, agonizing throb of my fresh surgical incisions suddenly faded completely into the background. The tears of frustration and physical pain that had threatened to fall earlier evaporated into thin air. In their place grew a cold, brilliant, and beautiful rage. It was a terrifying kind of anger. It was the kind of anger that does not scream, cry, or throw heavy plates against the kitchen wall. It was the quiet, methodical, and highly dangerous wrath of a highly intelligent woman who had just realized she held every single winning card in the deck. I looked around my beautifully decorated bedroom, at the expensive oak furniture I had bought, at the home I had built from absolutely nothing. They were landing at the airport in exactly 24 hours. They fully expected a meticulously clean house, a refrigerator stocked with expensive food, and a broken, bleeding woman too weak to fight back. They were not just going to find locked doors. I was going to tear down their entire hypocritical, parasitic world, brick by brick, and I was going to make absolutely sure they paid dearly for every single drop of my blood they had ever spilled. The spreadsheet on my laptop screen was the spark, but my mind was already constructing the inferno. I closed the email and immediately opened my digital contact book. Years of providing high-level data analytics for various entertainment sectors meant I had a very lucrative, very exclusive network. I found the number I needed. A prominent independent film production company based in Los Angeles was currently scouting modern, high-end residential locations in Colorado for a psychological thriller. They had reached out to me 3 months ago for data modeling on their target audience, and the lead producer had casually mentioned their desperate search for a shooting location. I dialed the producer, a fast-talking man named David. He answered on the second ring. "David, it is Cora," I said, keeping my voice smooth and entirely professional, masking the sharp pain shooting up my lower back. "I remember you mentioning your location scouting issues. I have a proposition for you. My property is available for a 2-week exclusive shoot, starting tomorrow evening, fully furnished, modern aesthetic, highly secluded." "Tomorrow?" David asked, his voice spiking with surprise. "Cora, that is incredibly short notice, but we are desperate. What is the catch?" "The catch is that you take it immediately, and you pay a premium emergency rate," I replied calmly. "I need an ironclad commercial lease signed within the hour. More importantly, I need your standard multi-million-dollar equipment insurance clause activated. Absolute zero occupancy, no residents, no guests, and strict liability for any unauthorized entry. Your security team takes full physical control of the perimeter." David did not hesitate. Within 45 minutes, a secured digital contract landed in my inbox. The financial terms were staggering. The emergency location fee was enough to cover my mortgage for 2 entire years, but the money was entirely secondary. The insurance clause was the real weapon. The contract legally transferred temporary possession of the property to the production studio, explicitly barring anyone, including the legal owners, from occupying the premises to protect millions of dollars worth of cinematic equipment. Any unauthorized breach would be treated as a severe corporate liability, enforceable by immediate police action. I signed the document with a digital stroke of my pen and watched the massive upfront deposit hit my checking account 10 minutes later. With the first pillar of my strategy firmly in place, I moved to the second. I opened a new browser tab and searched for the most elite, premium medical rehabilitation facilities in the state. I found a luxury medical service apartment complex on the exact opposite side of the city. It offered 24-hour private nursing care, specialized orthopedic beds, and physical therapy sessions tailored to spinal recovery. It was hideously expensive, the kind of place reserved for professional athletes and wealthy executives. I used the film studio deposit to book their top-tier penthouse suite for a full month, paying the entire balance up front, for the first time in 8 years. I was using my own hard-earned money to care for myself, rather than financing the parasitic habits of my husband's family. Next came the fortification. I could not simply lock the doors. Marcus had keys. He had the digital codes. I needed to digitally amputate him from the property. I called a high-tech residential security firm that I frequently used to upgrade our company servers, because of the premium rush fee I offered. A technician arrived at my house within 2 hours, while I directed him from my bed via my mobile phone. He completely overhauled the entire smart home system. He changed the physical deadbolts on the front and back doors. He wiped the memory of the digital keypad, erased Marcus's biometric fingerprint data from the garage scanner, and transferred the master control software exclusively to my encrypted smartphone. By 5 o'clock in the afternoon, my own husband had less access to his primary residence than a random stranger on the street. The execution of the final phase occurred on Friday evening. True to his cowardly, oblivious nature, Marcus announced he was going out for drinks with his coworkers to celebrate the start of the weekend, leaving me alone in the house just 12 hours before his family was scheduled to land. It was the perfect, pathetic opening. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I dispatched a professional medical transport service. 2 incredibly gentle, muscular paramedics arrived at my bedroom. They expertly transferred my stiff, agonizingly painful body onto a stabilizing transport stretcher. They packed 2 large suitcases with my clothes, my essential electronics, and all of my medical supplies. I felt no sorrow as they wheeled me down the hallway. I looked at the pristine hardwood floors I had paid to polish, the expensive artwork I had curated, and the massive chef's kitchen where I had spent countless hours sweating over hot stoves for ungrateful guests. It felt like I was leaving a prison. Before they wheeled me out the front door, I asked the paramedic to pause in the kitchen. I reached out and placed a single, crisp white envelope dead center on the granite kitchen island. It had Marcus's name written across the front in bold black ink. Inside was a printed copy of the commercial film lease, highlighting the zero occupancy clause in bright yellow marker. Tucked behind it was a very brief, incredibly polite handwritten note. It read, "Marcus, as per my surgeon's strict orders, I have relocated to a specialized facility to properly recover from my major spinal surgery. The house has been leased to a film production company to cover my extensive medical expenses. They have assumed full legal control of the property. Do not try to enter. Enjoy the family vacation." The medical transport van pulled away from the curb just as the sun began to set behind the Rocky Mountains. As we drove down the street, I looked out the tinted rear window. I watched as a massive caravan of commercial box trucks rolled onto my quiet residential street. The film crew had arrived. Dozens of production assistants swarmed the property, unloading heavy light stands and massive camera rigs. A private security team was already setting up heavy steel barricades across the driveway, pounding massive warning signs into my perfectly manicured front lawn. The signs read, "Active filming location, high security area, trespassers will be prosecuted." I settled back against the plush, stabilizing pillows of the transport van, feeling the heavy hum of the engine beneath me. My spine still burned with a fierce, radiating ache, but my mind had never felt more incredibly serene. The stage was perfectly set. The trap was locked. All I had to do now was wait for the morning. Saturday morning arrived with the blazing heat typical of a high-altitude Colorado summer. Down in my quiet suburban neighborhood, the peace was shattered by the obnoxious rumbling of 3 oversized rental vans rolling down the street. Inside those vehicles sat 12 loud, expectant members of Marcus's extended family. They had flown in from Boston, exhausted but buzzing with the greedy anticipation of a perfect, entirely free vacation. They were undoubtedly dreaming of the plush guest towels, the fully stocked refrigerators, and the elaborate welcoming brunch I always had waiting for them. Marcus was driving the lead van, practically vibrating with pride. He was ready to play the generous patriarch, ready to swing open the front door and present his beautiful, immaculate castle to his adoring mother and his scheming sister, Harper. However, as the 3 large vehicles turned the final corner and approached my property, the excited chatter inside the vans abruptly died. Instead of a wide, welcoming driveway and a beautifully manicured lawn, they were greeted by an absolute fortress. A massive chain-link fence had been erected overnight, completely blocking off the entire front perimeter. Thick black cables snaked across the concrete, feeding power into enormous lighting rigs that towered over the roof. Standing squarely in front of the barricade, blocking the driveway with intimidating authority, were 2 extremely large security guards wearing tactical black uniforms. Bolted to the center of the fence was a massive metal sign that read, "Active filming location. Civil liability. Waiver in effect. Strictly no admittance." Marcus slammed on the brakes, throwing the van into park. He leaped out of the driver's seat, his face a perfect picture of utterly clueless rage. He marched up to the front gate, jiggling the heavy padlock that secured the chain-link fence. When that failed, he reached his hand through the metal diamond gaps, desperately trying to punch his access code into the smart lock on the front door, entirely oblivious to the fact that the entire system had been wiped clean. "What is the meaning of this?" Marcus shouted at the security guards, his voice cracking with embarrassment. Marcus's mother, unable to tolerate the situation for another second, pushed open the sliding door of the van and stepped out onto the hot pavement. "Marcus," she wailed dramatically, fanning herself with a travel magazine. "I am 70 years old. I have a terrible migraine. Tell these rude people to move their ugly metal fence so I can go inside and use the bathroom. Where on earth is Cora? Why is she not out here carrying my bags?" "Mom, please just wait a minute," Marcus pleaded, his authority crumbling in front of the entire family. Before the security guards could even respond, the heavy oak front door opened. The location manager, a sharply dressed woman holding a digital tablet, walked down the driveway. She approached the fence with the calm, detached professionalism of someone completely unimpressed by loud men. "Sir, you need to step away from the fence," she said firmly. "This is my house," Marcus demanded, his face turning a dangerous shade of red. "My wife is inside. You people are trespassing." The manager adjusted her glasses and looked down at her tablet. "According to our legally binding commercial lease, the sole authorized proprietor, Ms. Cora Castro, has granted our studio exclusive rights to this property for the next 14 days. The contract explicitly mandates a zero-occupancy rule. Any unauthorized individuals attempting to breach this perimeter, including relatives or spouses, will be immediately detained, and the local police department will be dispatched to arrest you for criminal trespassing. Now, please move your vehicles. You are blocking our catering trucks." Back near the rental vans, a secondary, far more explosive crisis was rapidly unfolding. The distant relatives, exhausted, sweaty, and now officially homeless, began to swarm out of the vehicles. They dragged their heavy suitcases onto the hot pavement, surrounding Harper like a pack of angry wolves. Sheila, the cousin who had emailed me the day before, crossed her arms tightly across her chest. "Harper," Sheila snapped, her voice cutting through the chaotic shouting. "I wired you $1,000 for my room. Aunt Linda paid you $800. You collected thousands of dollars from all of us for this private family retreat. If we cannot get inside, where exactly did our money go? We booked non-refundable flights based on your itinerary." "Harper," another uncle shouted, pointing an accusatory finger at her trembling shoulders. "You promised us premium catered meals and luxury service. If we have to go book hotel rooms at the last minute during peak tourist season, you are paying for every single cent of it." Harper's face drained of all color, turning a sickly, ghostly white. Heavy beads of sweat began to pour down her forehead, ruining her carefully applied makeup. She stammered, frantically looking around for an escape route, but the angry relatives pressed closer, demanding the vacation accommodations they had paid for. The brilliant, lucrative scam she had been running for 5 years was currently collapsing right on the sun-baked asphalt of my driveway. She just stared at the impenetrable iron fence blocking her from her stolen kingdom. Exactly 20 miles away, the atmosphere could not have been more different. I lay back against the incredibly supportive, temperature-controlled water mattress of my luxury medical suite. A gentle, cool breeze drifted in from the open balcony, carrying the scent of pine trees. The quiet beep of the heart monitor was a soothing rhythm, perfectly complementing the soft classical music playing from the bedside speaker. A private nurse had just fluffed my pillows and handed me a warm cup of premium chamomile herbal tea. I took a slow, deliberate sip, letting the calming warmth wash over me. Resting on the adjustable tray table next to my tea was my mobile phone. The screen was lighting up the dim room, vibrating continuously against the plastic surface. I tilted my head slightly to look at the notification bar. There were 47 missed calls from Marcus, followed by dozens of frantic text messages begging for an explanation. I did not reach for the phone. I did not silence the ringer. I simply lay there, staring at the flashing screen, and a slow, deeply satisfied smile spread across my face. The pain in my back was finally starting to fade, replaced entirely by the sweet, intoxicating taste of absolute control. 3 days of agonizing silence on my end were matched only by the desperate, humiliating chaos on theirs. Finding emergency hotel accommodations for 12 people in the middle of a high-altitude Colorado summer tourist season is a statistical impossibility. Through the frantic, escalating voicemails left on my phone, I learned they had been forced to cram into a dilapidated, filthy roadside motel miles outside the city limits. There were no luxury beds, no catered meals, and certainly no free servant to clean up after them. It took Marcus exactly 72 hours to bypass my digital blockade. Unable to reach me directly, he finally leveraged his legal status as my spouse to extract my rehabilitation facility address from our medical insurance provider. On Tuesday afternoon, the heavy oak door of my premium recovery suite was practically kicked open. Marcus stormed into the pristine room, looking absolutely deranged. His designer clothes were severely wrinkled, his hair was a greasy mess, and deep, dark circles hung under his furious eyes. Right behind him marched his mother, her face twisted into a grotesque mask of pure, self-righteous indignation. Neither of them paused to look at the medical monitors tracking my vital signs, nor did they spare a single glance at the heavy, restrictive braces securing my freshly operated spine. "You are an absolute monster," his mother spat, her shrill voice echoing violently off the sterile, quiet walls of my room. She marched straight to the foot of my medical bed, pointing a trembling, manicured finger at my face. "You are the most selfish, cold-blooded, and cruel woman I have ever met in my entire life. My family has been sleeping on dirty, bedbug-infested mattresses for 3 days because you decided to throw a childish, psychotic tantrum. You are supposed to be family. You are supposed to take care of us." "How could you do this, Cora?" Marcus shouted, stepping up beside his mother, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. "You locked us out of our own home. You humiliated me in front of my entire family. I had to stand there and watch private security guards threaten to arrest my own mother. You are my wife. You are supposed to support me, not treat my family like common criminals." I did not flinch. I did not raise my voice, and I certainly did not shrink back into my supportive pillows. I let their pathetic, chaotic energy wash over me, completely unaffected. The physical pain in my back was nothing compared to the absolute power I currently held in my hands. I slowly reached out my right hand and picked up the small black presentation remote resting on my wooden bedside table. I pointed it directly at the massive, 80-inch smart television mounted on the wall opposite my bed and pressed a single button. The giant screen flashed to life, instantly mirroring the display of my encrypted work laptop. I had spent the last 3 days in bed compiling a very specific, meticulously organized visual presentation. The first slide that illuminated the dim hospital room was a massive, glowing spreadsheet filled with raw financial data. "Marcus," I said, my voice dangerously soft, slicing right through his hysterical shouting with surgical precision. "Do you want to know why your family loves coming to visit us every single summer? It is not because they cherish our company. It is not because they respect you as the patriarch of this family. It is because your sister Harper runs a highly lucrative, illegal travel agency, and I am the unpaid, enslaved labor force." I clicked the remote. The screen shifted, filling with high-resolution screenshots of the shadow booking website Harper had built. I zoomed in on the stolen pictures of my living room, my guest bedrooms, and my backyard patio. "Look at the screen." "Marcus," I commanded coldly, refusing to let him look away. "These are emails from your cousins. Sheila complained to me about the room rates this year. Did you know Harper was charging your extended family $800 a week per person to sleep on air mattresses in our basement? Did you know she demanded a mandatory $200 grocery deposit from every single adult?" I pressed the button again, bringing up the hidden bank account statements I had traced. The official bank logos and routing numbers glared brightly in the room. Over the past 5 years, your beloved sister has secretly collected over $30,000 in clear profit from your own blood relatives. She charged them for the beds I purchased, the electricity I paid for, and the premium steaks I cooked while I was bleeding from my spine. She pocketed every single cent, and she let you believe they were coming here purely out of familial love. Marcus stopped breathing entirely. The angry, vibrant red flush completely drained from his face, replaced by a sickening, ghostly pale realization. His mouth hung open slightly as he stared at the giant television screen. His eyes darted rapidly across the irrefutable financial data, the itemized receipts, and the digital transaction logs bearing his sister's name. The grand, beautiful illusion of his loving, close-knit family shattered into a million tiny, sharp pieces right in front of him. The truth hit him like a physical blow to the chest. He was not a respected host. He was just a convenient, oblivious shield for his sister's elaborate, predatory scam. His mother opened her mouth to speak, desperately trying to formulate a defense for her daughter, but her jaw simply snapped shut. The arrogant fire in her eyes was rapidly replaced by genuine, suffocating panic. I turned my head, locking my gaze directly into her terrified eyes. "You want to talk about being selfish and cold-blooded?" I asked her, my tone dropping to a terrifying, quiet whisper. I clicked to the final, most devastating slide of the presentation. It was a fully itemized, legally formatted invoice, calculated with the absolute precision of a senior corporate data director. Over the past 8 years, I have personally financed your family's luxurious summer retreats. I calculated the inflation-adjusted cost of premium groceries, utility spikes, entertainment tickets, and thousands of hours of my own domestic labor. The total cost of my forced hospitality comes to exactly $90,000. I let that massive, suffocating number hang heavy in the sterile air of the room for a long moment, watching the sheer terror wash over both of their faces. I have compiled every single digital receipt, every fraudulent wire transfer, and every piece of communication regarding Harper's Little Shadow Hotel into a single, encrypted digital dossier. You have 2 choices right now. You can turn around, walk out of my medical suite, and take your entire deceitful family back to Boston this very minute. Or, I press one single button on this laptop, and I forward this entire forensic accounting file directly to the Internal Revenue Service. I am absolutely certain the federal government will be highly interested in investigating your daughter for hiding $30,000 of undeclared, untaxed income over a 5-year period, alongside multiple counts of felony wire fraud. The threat of the federal government was the final, lethal blow to their crumbling facade. The mother's face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. Without uttering a single word of defense or apology, she turned on her heel and sprinted out of my medical suite. She ran straight to the facility parking lot where the rest of the displaced, exhausted relatives were waiting in the sweltering heat. The moment she confessed the truth about the fraudulent room rates to protect herself, a massive, spectacular explosion of family drama erupted right on the asphalt. Inside my quiet room, the heavy oak door clicked shut, leaving Marcus standing completely alone at the foot of my bed. The arrogant, indifferent man who had dismissed my surgical agony just days prior was entirely gone. He collapsed heavily onto his knees, the expensive fabric of his trousers hitting the sterile floor with a dull thud. Tears streamed down his pale cheeks, his shoulders shaking with the weight of absolute realization. His desperate need to be the golden child had blinded him to the undeniable truth. He had allowed his toxic family to turn his bleeding, suffering wife into a disposable workhorse and a financial asset. "Cora, I am so sorry," he sobbed, his voice cracking with genuine anguish. "I had no idea. I swear to you, I did not know Harper was stealing from them. I have been such a fool. I will cut them off. I will never speak to my mother or my sister again. Just please, do not leave me." I looked down at the man sobbing on the floor. I did not feel a single ounce of pity. nor did my heart soften at his desperate pleas. I reached into the drawer of my bedside table and pulled out a thick, legal document securely bound in a sleek leather folder. "I am not leaving you, Marcus," I said, my voice entirely flat and devoid of any comforting warmth. "But things are going to be fundamentally different from this exact second forward. This is a post-nuptial agreement, drafted yesterday by the top family law attorney in Denver. It legally separates all of our financial assets. Furthermore, it establishes an absolute, non-negotiable legal boundary. Your mother, your sister, and every single member of your extended family are permanently banned from stepping foot on my property ever again." Marcus did not hesitate. He did not ask to read the terms. He practically crawled to the side of my bed, grabbed the heavy black pen I offered, and signed his name on the dotted line with trembling hands. Outside my window, the muffled sounds of shouting and chaos drifted up from the parking lot. Marcus's relatives had completely turned on Harper. The betrayal of stolen money had shattered their fake family loyalty into a million pieces. They were tearing each other apart with such vicious intensity that the facility management had to call the local police department to break up the screaming match. I watched the red and blue flashing lights reflect off my bedroom window, feeling a profound, beautiful sense of peace settle deep into my healing bones. 6 months later, the chilling Colorado winter had settled over the city, but my home had never felt warmer. I stood in the center of my newly renovated kitchen, tracing my fingers over the expensive quartz countertops. The massive payout from the commercial film lease had not only covered my premium medical care, but also funded a complete interior remodel. My spine was completely healed, fortified by titanium and the sheer willpower of a woman who had taken back her life. I poured myself a generous glass of premium red wine and leaned against the counter. Across the room, Marcus was quietly vacuuming the living room rug, his back bent as he scrubbed a small stain near the sofa. He had kept his promise. He had not spoken to his family since that chaotic day at the clinic. As I took a slow sip of the rich, dark wine, a small, triumphant smile played on my lips. I had finally learned the most valuable lesson of my entire 38 years of life. Genuine respect does not naturally sprout from love or obligation. It is forged in the fires of conflict, and it is strictly maintained by absolute, unyielding boundaries. Thank you so much to everyone for listening to my story today. I would love to know where you are tuning in from, so please let me know your location in the comments below. If you found today's story satisfying and want to help us keep this channel alive, please consider supporting Maya Revenge Stories by joining our Patreon. There, you can listen to our best, most exclusive true stories that are far too detailed and intense for us to publish on YouTube. You can easily join by scanning the QR code currently on your screen, or by clicking the Patreon link provided in the video description and the pinned comment. Stay strong, and never be afraid to set your boundaries.